Fala galera, welcome to the Strategy Corner. That's a brand new series called Strategy Mosaic. And during this one, I'll be showing all things mosaic related. In other words, how to create your universal semantic layer that later can be consumed not only here to create strategy dashboards, but of course externally in other tools like Power BI or maybe Tableau or via Python code or maybe with database clients like the Beaver. So all that sort of important stuff. In this series of episodes, you will see how to leverage security and object level filters, how to apply row level security, all that important stuff when it comes to creating your semantic layer. So I strongly recommend you to pay close attention to this one. It's a very important one. And if not yet, please, I recommend you to subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and get started with episode number 1. Alright, so let's jump into episode number 1, where I'm going to create your first mosaic model with the help of AI. You will see it will be 10 times faster than we normally do with regular BI tools. I already mentioned something like this in a previous episode of the Strategy Foundation series, but in this one I'm going to go a little bit further and deeper, and I'll show you step by step how to create this mosaic model. So stay there and let's learn together. Okay, so we're now ready to start creating our new mosaic model. We are here in library. Let's go ahead and click create new mosaic model, choose a project like this one, and then the first step is to select data, right? Data can be in tables, can be in local files like CSVs, Excel files. You can bring data from URL, from public data, or you can connect to brand new databases. Right now I don't need to because I already have my data source available here. So I'll be choosing Snowflake, PM demos. I'll be choosing that schema over here. And then the set of tables I'm looking for, they are named like this, PM IF demo. All right, so you can choose the ones that you want. In my case, I want all of them. So let me click on the first one and then all of them. Clicking the add button right here. All of them will be added to the model. Just remember, you can click the table as I'm doing now to have a preview of the data in here, to see a preview of the data, right? You can see the first 1,000 rows. If you click this settings button on the top right corner, the sample size is like this. You can also modify it, make it random, increase the number. There are some options available here that I'm not going to go deeper right now, but basically it talks about data preparation, auto create highly related attribute relationships, creating partitions, all that stuff. Additionally, you can decide the query mode. You can choose between import, in other words, bring the data from those tables into the strategy memory, or choose live. In other words, you're not going to retrieve data from the data warehouse. It will stay there. Every time you run a query against this model, you will be touching the database itself, right? One more thing here, for each of the tables you are selecting, for example, this DIN customer that I'm bringing here, you can decide if you need all the columns or just a few of them. Let's say I don't want VIP status column in my model right now. You can decide not to add it to the model by clicking this button right here. But in my case, yes, I do want this one. All right? Notice that you can also apply filters to those tables. So for example, this is the DIN Fact Sales Daily table. It's the one of the highest volume. So instead of bringing the whole million rows in that table, you can click the filter button. And you can decide, for example, to bring in just, let's say, the first months of data and things like this. Later, you can apply the filter. And by doing this, you avoid bringing in all that data volume that we mentioned before. But that's all up to you, right? Next step, let's go ahead and click proceed on the top right corner here. And then you notice all the tables have been added. Those tables, they contain 54 columns in total. And those columns, they will start to be converted into attributes and metrics because AI is starting to create all of this automatically instead of doing it manually as you would normally do in a BI tool and things like this. It does it automatically, right? You see here 38 attributes already, 6 metrics. You can click on the tables to see the content. All of the tables available here. You can see a data preview in this window as well. And again, AI continues to build the model. It will depend, and here it says like 2 minutes, but of course this will depend on the amount of data that we have, on the amount of tables, amount of columns. So the more tables and columns, the longer the time, but of course it will be 10 times faster than if you were to be building all of these things manually. And I'm being like optimistic here by saying 10 times faster. It can be even more, right? I'm not being very optimistic, by the way. It can be way faster than just 10 times. Of course, it depends. It depends on certain factors. But the thing is, it's way faster. Notice on the right corner, suggestions. AI is suggesting some things for you. It's giving you recommendations, both in terms of data preparation, or in other words, in terms of cleaning the data, and in terms of modeling. In other words, to create new attributes, define relationships, all that sort of stuff. Of course, this will depend on the way the data is modeled in the database, on the way the data is being cleansed previously. The more the data is cleansed, the lesser you will see here in terms of preparation and modeling. All right, it seems like the modeling has been created already, the suggestions. There is no modeling recommendation right now, but there could be something. And in terms of preparation, there's just one being given here. We can click this thing here and we can later click that square to see what recommendation is being given. Right now I don't want to apply any recommendation. Let me just leave it the way it is. All right, so the model has been created. I have all my tables in here. Later you can see all your attributes and metrics. You can organize those attributes and metrics in folders. You can create your folders right here. Right now what I want to show you guys is how to check the tables in that tables view. And then in here you can actually expand those tables and see their names and the relationships between attributes and tables and their corresponding tables. For example, in the monthly sales table, I have month, which connects to the dim time table, as I'm showing you right now here. The same monthly table contains a relationship to the customer attribute. If I click customer here, you see, it shows up in the dim customer table, that one over here. And it also mentions that the customer attribute is already available in the daily table and also in the quarterly table. So Strategy automatically does all that mapping. If later you decide to create a dashboard that shows, for example, revenue by, let's say, month, Strategy will be sufficiently smart to know that month lives in the monthly table, not in the daily table. So the query will run against that specific aggregated table, saving you a lot of time and the query performing way better. We can check here hierarchies to see that all the hierarchies have been created automatically. You can zoom in and out to see them. Later, if you see that maybe AI made a mistake, you can right-click one of the recommendations or the relationships, and you can change. You can make it one-to-many, or many-to-one, or many-to-many, or maybe if you decide to remove it because it doesn't make sense, it's all up to you. Remember, AI will give you the recommendations, but it's all up to us as the data architect or the data analyst to confirm if this is correct or not. All right? One more thing we can do here. We can create attributes, additional ones. In this example, I don't need any new attributes because attributes have been created already, but I could be creating new ones. And we can create new metrics, and that's quite cool, quite interesting. You see here, when we click create metrics, we have the ability to use one of the suggestions that, once again, AI is generating. For example, let's say I want a profit margin metric. I can click this one. I can click on the suggestion. The chatbot starts to analyze it, and it gives you the suggestion and also a description of what's going on. It shows you the breakdown. If you decide to create it, all you have to do is click the create button. Easy like this. You see, it's a valid expression. The metric name is already available here. Later, you can define additional properties like the formula, the level of dimensionality or cardinality for that metric, conditions or filters applied to that metric. Let's say you just want profit margin for a specific country. You can apply a condition later here. And you can also define formatting. For example, if this is profit margin, I want it to be percentage. And by the way, it's already in percentage. I can add decimal numbers or remove them, all of that good stuff. All right? So later we can close this metric editor. You can see that the metric we created comes with this little icon over here that shows like a derived metric. And then we have the traditional one, the ones created by AI in the first place. You see 6 of them here. So if you later want to modify the formatting, for example, you can go to cost, double click this one, click formatting, and instead of making it fixed, let's make this one currency and use the 1000 separator. And then it's already formatted. I can close this one. I can do the same thing for the other ones. I'm not doing this all over because it will take a bit of time, so it's not needed. But just remember, you double click the metric, you click formatting, you choose currency, and you choose use 1000 separator if you want to, of course. Then the metric is properly formatted as of now. So at this point, the model is ready. I'm going to go ahead and click save or publish, whatever we prefer. Let me go ahead and click publish. Let me give a name to this model. Let me call it my first mosaic model. Notice that the description comes already populated, and that that description that you see here is based on the data we have in the model. Later we can save it. I'm going to be saving this one to my reports, and I'm going to click save and publish. There we go. The model is being saved and it's being published. In other words, since this is an import, the data in Snowflake is being brought into memory, and we are ready to use this model. You see here, it's publishing the data. It takes a few seconds. Of course, this will depend on the volume. It can take a bit longer in case we're talking about billions of rows and things like this. But right now, it's not a big data set. It's not a big mosaic model. So it's already created, it's already published. We can leverage this by creating a new dashboard, as you can see here. I'm not going to create any dashboard right now. Let me close this one. The model is here. Let me make this one a favorite. Click in here. It shows up as the first one. And again, once created, you can go back and right-click, choose Edit, and do all the stuff we did before. We can go back to Sources, add new tables, or manage the existing tables in there. That's all doable. You can go back to Prepare the Model and start creating new metrics, check the relationships, all that stuff we saw before. One more thing I would like to mention is this piece here, security and translation. I'll be covering this in another video, but you see we have 3 types or 2 types of security that we can apply. First one being row level. In other words, you can see specific rows of data in the database, and we can have object level security. In other words, who has access to the whole model, or who has access to attributes or metrics within the model. So we can define all these levels of securities, but we'll talk about it later. And we can also define translation. So my objects that we see here, we can have them in multiple languages like English by default, maybe, I don't know, Brazilian Portuguese, my main language, or maybe Spanish or French, Chinese, whatever language you guys prefer or need to have this model properly working. All right? Again, I'm not saving anything here because I didn't do any change. Let me just close this one. And with this, we have our first model created. All right, folks, so that was episode number 1 of this series. I hope you learned how to create your first Mosaic model. Remember, we first connect to the data source, we select the tables, and then AI starts to create attributes and metrics, and we define formatting. We check if relationships are properly created. Once we finish with everything, we can define security, and at the end, we just publish the model and make it available for everyone to consume it, right? That's what we need. So I hope you like this one. I hope you are interested in learning more about Mosaic models. I strongly recommend you to watch the next ones. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Once more, thanks for being here. And as I normally say, I'll see you at the next corner.